Hey everyone, it's Kelly here, and we have another round of real life stories of private practice building. And with me today is Namrata Rendani McMahill. Otherwise, I call her Nam because it's way easier. Welcome, Nam.
Thank you, Kelly. It's you and the rest of the world. So Nam is perfect.
Awesome.
Though you did a really good job with my full name. That was awesome.
Thank you.
The Indian in me thanks you.
I try. So Nam is a marriage family therapist intern in private practice in Southern California. And what some of you may not know is that in California, as in other states, it varies how interns can do private practice. And here, as an intern, you have to be an employee. Other states, you can own your own business, and then you contract out your supervision. So it varies from state to state. However, the reason I am so glad you're here, Nam, is because I think that, at least for me, and I want to hear about your experience, I was kind of taught like private practice is something for licensure. And like even finding a private practice as an intern wasn't even on my radar or consideration. So tell me about why private practice for you, and where did this kind of birth out of for you?
So you're absolutely right. Even when I was in graduate school, I always heard of private practice as this privilege for the licensed. It's what you do once you take the test and you're done with your hours. Because I would ask people what they want to do when they grow up as therapists, and everyone would say private practice. And for a while, I actually thought that an intern cannot do private practice. What started to kind of build up for me was recognizing that I tend to have a really out of the box creative streak when I work with clients. And that was something that in agency jobs was encouraged. And I say that with quotes because that came with, well, yeah, you can be narrative, but can you make it sound like CBT? Or sure, you can use art, but can you use a thought record instead? It was, it was a little challenging. And what I started to realize is the biggest gift a therapist can bring to a therapy room is uniqueness. And it's creativity. It's designing therapy to meet the person who's sitting in front of you as opposed to what a book taught you. And I watched my supervisor at that time when I was doing practicum kind of, enjoy this creativity in her private practice. And so she and I would have a lot of conversations around it. And even at that point, I wasn't really into doing private practice. It was way too scary. But something shifted for me once I was done with my practicum hours. And my supervisor sensed that in me as well. And about a month after I finished practicum, there was this opening in her private practice. And I said yes. And in all honesty, I had no idea what I was saying yes to. All I knew was I felt a passion for that kind of work. And I strongly believed, and I believe in that to this day, that there are people in the community who want to be served in very unique ways. And agency jobs just don't let you do that. And so for me, it's been about kind of closing the gap between what I have to do based on a book versus what a client really wants, which is conversation and creativity, and private practice allows me to do that. So I dived right into it.
And what did that look like in the first few months of diving right in? What did that all... What was your process for starting?
It involved a lot of paper bags that I was breathing into because I said yes. And then I went, oh, wait, I have to figure out how to get clients through the door. Because till then, I had the luxury of just kind of showing up, to my training site. And I had a schedule that I had to follow. So the first few months were a very precious mix of complete exhilaration and paralyzing panic. Like I was back and forth between those two because every time I would potentially have a client, it would kind of bring me back to why I was doing this. And then there would be a week where I would have no clients, as you often do when you kind of start off. And I would have those very familiar voices of fear going, oh no, maybe they're right. You can't do this as an intern. It's too hard. And I don't know how to market. I didn't learn it in grad school. And so it was a very interesting mix of both until a point where I realized that the panic part just kind of sucked. I was not having a good time breathing into paper bags. And so for me, the process shifted to how can I increase or kind of stay true to the exhilaration part of private practice and do away with the panic, which it involved making some shifts in the way I was thinking and in the way I was practicing and the way I was showing up.
Can you talk about some of those shifts? Because I'm curious to hear what you did.
Absolutely. I think private practice is, and I've recognized this over the years, is a very interesting way of, showing you what your fears are and what your limiting beliefs tend to be. What are the stories you tell yourself? And back when I started, one of the stories I told myself was, it's recession. There aren't a lot of clients who can afford therapy. I worked in a street that had 9 other therapists on that street. So when I would, punch in my name in psychology today, it wouldn't show up for years. And it was stuff like that was making me go, am I making a mistake here? Like, is this just not going to work? And every time I experienced some sort of a lull, it would, kind of reinforce this false belief that I had that I couldn't make it work. So one of the biggest shifts that I found myself make is working really hard to figure out where these clients are. How come everyone else is going through a recession just like I am? There are these other 8 therapists on the same street, but they're doing okay. So there's something happening out there that I am not doing. And the first step for me, what that involved was starting to ask a lot of questions. Anyone and everyone who would show me some level of interest, I would ask questions too. How are you doing this? What is working for you? Can you show me? Can you share with me? It was a lot of questions that I started to ask. And then I started to realize that marketing is not this far off thing that you have to learn and do. It's basically being yourself and being willing to show up in the community and letting them see you. So in some ways, I was marketing every day, everywhere, because I was being myself every day, everywhere. And I started to get referrals from the most surprising people. People I had met once years ago started sending me clients. And the clients that I was seeing started to refer me to their coworkers and to other people. And it was all entirely based on me just being myself. So my biggest shift was, if something is lacking in your private practice, look at what you're doing and not doing, and then figure out what you need to do and then do it.
I think that what you said about that whole aspect of being yourself. I don't know if it's school or internships or what, that there's this idea of the MFT, you're the therapist, and then there's this, but like I want to be that same person within the space of my work with my clients as I am in the real world. Of course, I'm not going to like jabber about myself in session, but my personality, who I am, how I carry myself is congruent, and I think
absolutely
you finding that space, really, it is important. And out of that comes confidence, knowing who you are. Yeah.
Right. And being okay with that. You're absolutely right. There are all these messages and social constructions where even this idea, wearing a therapist hat or wearing a mom hat, or why are you wearing hats?
Right.
As opposed to just allowing yourself to show up in different roles. And so the person I am when I speak to a client is exactly like this. This is how I speak to a client, because we're all people, and at the very core, therapy is about conversation.
What has been some of the, you said you had some surprising referrals. Can you tell me one of your most surprising referral sources?
A hairdresser that I didn't even actually wind up going to.
You never even saw her?
No, him. I didn't. Too pricey. I was an intern on a budget. Couldn't get my hair colored the way I wanted to. It was way too expensive. But we had a really good email conversation. We didn't even speak on the phone. This was just back and forth emails, and I was being myself. I was being silly and goofy, and he thought it was fun. And it was almost like a year down the line where I had a client show up from the same industry. And then that client wound up giving me a lot of different clients as well. And the second surprising one, which was a big learning moment for me as an intern, was someone called me after checking my profile out on Psychology Today and called me saying, I don't want private pay. I want to use my insurance. And as an intern, I can't do that. And so I still kind of spoke to her. I offered her different options. We worked together in making sure she got the kind of referral she was looking for. She wound up sending me a couple, and then that couple wound up sending me more couples. And so it was ironically people that I'd never even met that sent me referrals. And it's awesome. It's so much fun when that happens.
Yes. I think relationships are key. And like whenever I talk about social media and stuff like that, I'm like, it all leads to relationships. That's how you and I met, was on your Facebook group. We didn't meet face to face until this past weekend. So
I know.
Right. But you being you means you stand out and you're memorable and just kind and compassionate, and it comes through, and talking to you. So it's lovely to find your voice is important. Yeah.
Yes, it's so important.
What kind?
And it's, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was about to say, and that's something that if there was this one thing I could tell therapists who are starting out in private practice, interns or not, is to find that voice and not be kind of confined by this idea that nobody taught me how to do this. Almost all the skills I actually use in private practice to get clients, I learned in the sandbox. Like, they're life skills. If you have something awesome, you share it. If you want to build a relationship, you show interest in that person. If you want to continue and sustain a connection, then you engage that person. You ask questions. You allow them to see who you are. And all those things work in my private practice. And that's where I get clients from, is finding different avenues to let people see who I am and how I could potentially support them.
I love that. Play in the sandbox, and that's where you learn. I love that. That's a great metaphor. Really beautiful. So as you're starting out, what kinds of marketing have you tried, and what did you love, and what did you not so much love?
That is a really amusing question to me, because believe it or not, I've been in private practice as an intern for 4 years, and it wasn't until 3 months ago that I got business cards printed and a website going. I hadn't done any of that, but I've had clients. It's not that, it didn't work. And so for me, what I've really enjoyed doing is building relationships with people. I think that's something that I invest a lot of my time in. I invest a lot of my energy in, and then branching out by keeping that as my goal. I want to build relationships with people who will know that I have some support I can offer the community, and B, will know who I am and possibly know other people who may need my services. And so for me, it's been staying true to building relationships, but then starting to find different avenues of doing that. In all authenticity, my strength has been, and my most amount of fun has been, in building relationships online. I am a social media person. There's something about it I love, and then there's something about it that is entirely an introvert kind of protecting myself strategy. And so I've done that and enjoyed that a lot. I have now started to branch out into walking into businesses in the neighborhood that I am, which is a little more challenging, but it's also really fun. And just kind of going to them and asking them what they do, showing interest in how they offer services, and kind of building a relationship where, can you let me know how you serve the community? Because I may know someone that I can refer to you. I will ask a lot of questions to them. And it's really hard to meet someone who, when you ask them about their work, they won't ask you about yours, which then becomes a very organic way of me sharing, oh, this is what I do. And, you're a chiropractor. I would love to send my clients to you because I can see how it will help. And boom, relationship build. And then you keep kind of sustaining it. This part of marketing is a little bit harder for me than the first because it's out of my comfort zone. but that's also where all of the magic happens. So I like it.
I think one of the keys of what you were saying there is about the sustaining the relationship. And I think that's where some people struggle, because
Yes.
you might send out calls or emails, and then you might have a little exchange, but how do you keep nurturing that relationship? How have you done that with some of the relationships that you've built? How does that kind of, do you organize it in a way? Do you have, I don't know, are there any tools you use to remind yourself, like, oh, I should follow up with this person, or that sort of thing?
Yes, I use reminders on my phone on Google Calendar. Um, but here's the thing, Kelly. If I am not remembering to connect with someone that I made a connection with, I've probably not made a really good connection. So as much as I do organize and I make sure I'm sending emails out and I'm doing all of that stuff, most of it is really natural to me because my why is very, very strong. It's my why of building a relationship is what fuels everything I do. And interestingly, my why is not, I'm going to get referrals from this person. My why is I want to connect with this person and see how this person and I can serve the community. It all goes back to service and support for the community. And so building and sustaining relationships for me often looks like, having a conversation that's business related, but then also having conversations about the weather or having conversations about, were you at the Mardi Gras at Hillcrest? Because it's a neighboring community that we work in. Again, it goes back to the sandbox. It's sitting on a swing set, sharing your PB&J and talking about your favorite comic books or whatever it is you're into. And that's what becomes very natural after a certain point. So for me, it is organizing, sending out emails and stuff like that. But what works the most for me is, again, just keeping the relationship in mind, making that a priority.
Yeah. I think the organizing comes in handy when you're first starting.
Yeah.
Because I find, like, when you're first starting, I don't know if this is your experience, but you do a lot more, like, initiating. And then, like you're saying, as you build the relationship, things come organically. And when you're initiating, it's like you're just sending out to as many people and reaching out wherever you can to serve. So I like that idea of using the Google Calendar. And I also like the idea of paying attention to who you remember and who you want to follow up with. And who do you just find yourself wondering, I wonder how they're doing,
Yes.
And two, like, I want to know something about them from a personal level. Do they have kids and all that stuff you're saying? Like, did they go to Mardi Gras?
Yeah, what did you do on Saturday? It's as simple as that. And I notice I've been on the receiving end of people wanting to build relationships with me as well. And I honestly learned this from that, where I get random texts from people I haven't seen in months going, oh, so I noticed that you're starting X and Y. I'm wondering if you need a guest speaker. And I'm like, what? Really? Like, no. How about we chat first? You show that this is, just fake it if you have to, but build the relationship, care about the relationship, and then the referrals will come organically. Don't keep, I need clients as the focus.
So I don't have business cards, but I do have a website. I don't market my practice anymore. But why did you decide to get business cards and a website?
It was the natural next step for me. I'll emphasize more on the website than the business cards. It's been more valuable. The reason why I didn't have a website was I was procrastinating. It felt too big. It felt too scary. It was one of my personal challenges that I wanted to avoid until, again, I made a shift in how I was thinking about a website. And that shift was, well, my goal is to connect with community. Why in the world would I want to hold back on one more way of connecting with people who may need help? And so beautiful. that was my push on creating a website. The business cards part I started to notice it's again hairdressers. I was getting a haircut from a new salon in the neighborhood that I work in. And we were chatting away and she was asking me what I do. And she went, oh, I actually have a lot of friends who could use your help. And then she asked me the question that I absolutely hated, which was, do you have any business cards?
I know, yes.
And I went, no. And she said, oh, do you have a website? And I went, no.
Uh-huh.
And it was a huge learning moment because I could feel myself kind of going, oh dear, like, how are these people going to know who I am just
Yeah.
based on this one haircut? That's not going to happen. And that's what happened. I didn't wind up getting referrals because I had nothing to kind of make myself memorable by other than our connection. And she wanted something tangible to give to another human being.
Yes. Yes.
And so it was that day, it was that haircut that made me go, okay then. And I started that week. I had my business card sent in for order that week, and
Awesome.
I started my website that week.
And how has been the process of building your website?
Much like starting my private practice, breathing into paper bags and sheer exhilaration.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, being an intern, and this I think a lot of interns in private practice can relate to, you don't have a lot of disposable income. The way, at least in California, it works is when you're an intern, a percentage of whatever you bring in is given to your supervisor. That's just kind of how it goes. So by the time you get your paycheck, you have some limitations on what you can spend it on. And so I started off with a really basic website that I don't think anyone would ever find, and I didn't even enjoy. But it was the practice of starting to work on putting myself out there.
Yeah.
So I started with that, and I'm still, it's evolving. I'm still working on it, and I think I'll be working on it for life because I'm actually starting to really enjoy it, and I'm starting to find creative ways of
Good.
connecting with community through my website. So it's a learning process. It parallels everything else in our work. It parallels what happens when we see our first client, what happens when you have a really challenging couple on the couch, when you experience a lull in private practice. You go through fears, and then you go through all the good stuff. And building a website has not been an exception.
Yeah. And I think it's that taking action.
Yeah.
And very
Definitely.
important. Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. And I think what has helped me the most, which started when I first started my private practice and is really important to me even right now, is asking for help, looking for resources that can support you. It's how I kind of found you and Miranda and Zinni Me, because even when you're on a budget, there is so much free stuff that so many generous people offer. My gosh, learn from it. If you're going to stay in this idea of, I don't have the money, I'm just an intern, I can't make it, then you won't make it. And so I spend a lot of time. I have a schedule, I have a research and training schedule in my business plan, where I watch webinars, I read things, I read books, I ask questions, I talk to people in the community just to learn.
Is there a book you've read recently that you'd love to recommend?
Yes. This may show up in another podcast as well, but I cannot recommend it enough. It's actually a children's book. It has nothing to do with business. It has nothing to do with private practice. It's called The True Story of the Three Little Pigs. It's a fractured fairy tale where the entire story of the three little pigs is written from the perspective of the wolf. So the story is rewritten from the perspective of the wolf. Mm-hmm. The reason why I recommend it when I talk about private practice is because that book truly shows you how, no matter what you think the story of your private practice is, there is another way of looking at it. If you're in this place where you're just not getting clients, shift positions, try seeing it from a different angle, see what is there and what is not there, what you can and cannot do. When you have a challenging client in private practice, think about it from the big bad wolf's perspective. And so this book teaches me to think outside of the box. It teaches me to look at all the different perspectives instead of just sticking to my own. Mm-hmm. And it's actually helped me in a number of ways. Outside of that, a business private practice book that I have really enjoyed is Be a Wealthy Therapist by Casey Truffaut. It's, especially if you're starting out, it's a great book because she has, at the end of every chapter, there are coaching questions that she kind of walks you through. Yes. So those two books are my favorite go-tos.
What kinds of trainings have helped you in building your practice? I mean, name whatever. I want people to get tons of resources.
Wow, I don't even know where to start because I am a training junkie.
Well, let's do the top 3.
Top 3. Do you want websites or do you want actual trainings?
Whatever you think is most helpful for people.
I really do this a lot. Okay. Yes, I have 2 that really, really spoke to me. One was, they both happen to be from your website, which I'm a huge fan of because it truly, truly helped me bring everything together.
Great.
One was your training on fee setting.
That's a good one.
Oh my goodness. The number of things that came up for me when I was in that webinar was tremendous. It was honestly like a therapy session because I unpacked a lot of these ideas of setting my fee and asking for my fee that they were scary to kind of confront. But then I also set up some goals and I want to meet my goals. So I'm going to get there. So that was one training. The other one was on your niche building, depending on whether you speak to Kelly or Miranda, which was, that kind of lit me up like a Christmas tree. I loved that training because, again, it challenged a lot of the fears I had that a lot of therapists have is I don't want to limit myself.
Right.
I don't want to just say that I see only these clients. And so that training is something that I highly recommend to as many therapists as possible. Because you want to specialize. You don't want to serve everyone. You don't serve everyone.
You can't.
Even if you have, it's not possible. And so when I see profiles of therapists on psychology today and I see that they serve everyone, I kind of go, well, I don't know if I want to refer to you because I don't know what you do and how you do it. And so those 2 trainings. And then the third training it's a 4-part series by Casey Truffaut. It's a free webinar. She talks about every possible thing under the sun, from launching your practice to your website. It's all covered. And it's free. It's on her website. It's on YouTube.
Perfect.
And it kind of walks you through it all.
Awesome. Okay. So what do you think is different, or do you think there is a difference in starting in private practice as an intern than as someone who is licensed in terms of the challenges of startup? I know for us in California, I think one of the challenges is the fee issue of it being split, of you not owning your full fee, like a person that's an intern in like Texas, for example. So beyond the fee, do you think there's anything else that's unique for an intern?
Yes, there actually really, really is. And I don't think it gets spoken about a lot, but a lot of interns struggle with it. You don't own your practice. You want to be able to say you do. Yes. You want to say it's my own business, but it isn't. It still is your supervisor/employer's business, which comes with its expected challenges. You don't get to kind of actualize your dreams and your visions exactly the way you want to, unless you find a supervisor who is in alignment with what you want in your private practice. And so that is definitely a challenge that I've experienced, witnessed, and noticed in my journey as a private practitioner is, when I own my own business, I think I'm going to do it like this.
Yeah. Which
it's a humbling reminder that you are still in the process of learning. You're still a student, you're still a fledgling, and you have a mentor. So while it's frustrating that you can't do everything you want to do, you have this amazing gift of being able to have access to someone who's licensed, who's supervising you, and can show you the way when you get lost.
Yeah. I think it's important, too, to highlight that you've been on other podcasts. The one that I heard most recently is Joe Sanek's Practice of the Practice. And that's where he shares more about your background and story. So I'm going to put the link in there so people can hear that podcast, because it was really awesome. And so in this journey, where do you see yourself this year? Where do you see it going?
Oh my goodness, where do I not see it growing? I don't want to say I have goals. I'm trying to find a different word for goals that doesn't have...
Intentions?
Yeah, I have intentions, I have visions, I have a certain number of clientele that I want to hit. I want to expand the way I'm marketing. I want to be able to go out and speak to the community that I want to serve. It's public speaking for, I think, a lot of us is kind of scary, but it's something I absolutely want to do. In addition to that, I have a couple of projects that I'm working on that involve serving the community, but not necessarily only in private practice. I'm launching on March 23rd, I'm launching something called the Empowered Intern, which actually touches on a lot of questions you asked me. It's a resource that I'm designing for the pre-licensed therapist to kind of get past all those ideas that I can't and I have to wait and all of that stuff, and launch yourself, be yourself, empower yourself to do whatever you want to do, even as a pre-licensed therapist. And in addition to that, we have some really fun, exciting ideas for our online community, therapists in private practice, which I think you want to watch out for. It's going to grow, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be even a bigger resource for the private practice community than it already is.
That's exciting. Yeah. I mean, that's how you and I first met, was in the therapist in private practice group that you started.
Yes.
And I just want to touch back to what you're saying about the empowered intern stuff, because if you can learn to be you now, it will only benefit you moving forward, right? Because honestly, that mindset stuff, if you don't deal with it, it comes up when you're licensed. When you're licensed, it doesn't go away. It's not some magic wand. When you have been licensed for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, there's always something that you could do more or learn more. And the fact is that you're always growing, but where you're at is good too.
Yes.
You know, so embracing that now is important. And if you can start to learn that pre-licensed or wherever you're at in the journey, you're not going to have to keep doing that down the road. Because I talk to people that have been in practice for a long time that still are like, well, I'm thinking about getting this certificate, because not so much because I'm passionate about it and I really need the skill set, but I'm thinking it'll help me give me credibility. So
I love what you just shared, because that's something that I think of. In this year, I am going to get licensed. It's part of my plan for the year. And I have this vision that I have no doubt will be true, which is the day I get licensed, I have a job I love. I don't have to start looking for a job now that I'm licensed. I have a caseload that I'm working with. I have a fee, and I have figured out how to kind of conquer the limitations of fee setting, because I would, raise my fee as a licensed therapist. I have that figured out. I have figured out who it is that I love working with, how to connect with them. There's very little that will really shift for me as a licensed professional. I will get to keep the money that I make, which will be great. But by the time I get to that place, a lot of the messy work has either been taken care of, or I know what it is.
Right.
It's kind of, going back to the child metaphor. Can you imagine if the developmental stage where we learn to crawl and then walk happened after we got a job? Like, some things have to happen early on.
Yes.
And it's very similar in terms of being an intern, moving into being a licensed private practitioner. You want to get your foundation going when you're an intern. It's the best time to do it. You have no overheads. You have mentorship. You can make mistakes, and it's okay. You learn from them. And then you get licensed, and you're good to go.
Beautiful. So if there was a tool that you recommend to pre-license in private practice, something that has helped you, I don't care, any kind of tool, whether it's a marketing tool or a business tool or a health and wellness tool, what's one tool that has helped you?
My goodness. Just one?
Just one.
Do your own work. That's not a tool, but
that is a tool.
Find a therapist, make better friends, do whatever you need to, listen to webinars and podcasts and read books that will help you figure yourself out. Because if you don't do that, no matter what business tools you learn, no matter what trainings you go for and how you set your fees and how you choose to specialize, your stuff will show up.
Oh, it will. Oh, I think there was something you said earlier about how, your business can bring up stuff. And I always say your business is a mirror, just like any other
Yes.
relationship. And it's just going to reflect back what has always been there. So, yes,
Absolutely.
doing your own work. Oh my gosh. So helpful. I've been doing mine off and on for like 10 years, and
Yes.
I'm never going to be done.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a constant growth. And actually, I love the work of it. And I am a different business owner because of it. Definitely.
Yes, I can completely see that. It's doing your own work, and then from the business side of things, recognize that you're starting out, which means you want to figure out how to do things and you don't want to do it alone. There are people who have already walked the path that you're starting on. Ask them to help you, ask them questions, ask them how you did it. It's the number one thing I would say to any intern is if you know someone who you admire, are inspired by, who has done what you want to do, connect with them. Be a student and connect with them.
So, what are the best ways people can reach you?
The best ways people can reach me, my website, which I now have along with my business card, is www.soulnarratives.com. It has all my contact information in there. You can also email me at nam@narrativetherapysd.com.
Okay. And I'll also put the link to the Therapist in Private Practice group. And do
Absolutely.
you have a link yet for the Empowered Intern?
Not as yet. I have one, but it's going to change. But that information is going to be on my Soul Narratives website.
Awesome.
And it's also going to be in Therapists in Private Practice, which is the group that my husband and I created for the community.
Awesome.
So you will see that everywhere once it's ready.
I want to just thank you for doing this with me. And honestly, thank you for what you do for our community. I appreciate it. And I know that comes out of a place of your heart. And it really does show. It's a group I enjoy participating with, and I love how you and your husband manage that group, and just really your heart for the field. I think it's contagious, Nam. So if anyone hears your story and is inspired, they really need to connect with you. You're an amazing person to know, and I'm grateful to know you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. You have been such an asset, along with Miranda, to have in the community. And now I can say even in my life, there's so much I learned from you, which is why there are people who ask me if you guys pay me to share Zinimi stuff. And over I go, no, it's that PB&J. It's so delicious that I have to share it with you.
But maybe we should go out for PB&J sometime.
Yum. It's my favorite food. So it's a deal.
All right. Sounds
good. That is therapy right there. PB&J sandwiches.
Sounds good.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being you.
Thank you.